Good morning everyone. In this video I'm going to analyze the live price action for EU and DXY to see what opportunities may be available today. You're going to see my strategy and my analysis, so if you're interested in those then please stick around. Right, starting off on the daily chart, EU at the top, DXY at the bottom. Now what can we see on the daily? Well, Friday clearly closed out as a nice bullish engulfing candle. Since rejecting this daily imbalance down here, we obviously had that support and a bullish reaction from there. The same can be seen in our inverse on DXY. Daily imbalance was filled, held as support, then we had this bearish closeout on the Friday. So otherwise on the daily we're still definitely up within this premium obviously, and in terms of liquidity we still have our previous daily high, previous daily low, and our previous weekly highs and lows still intact at the beginning of this week. Same on DXY. So I guess the question will be, do we continue bullish from this area and bearish from this area or not, right? So let's go down to the 4 hour and see what that shows us. So 4 hour, to me we still have this bullish leg here with the low and the high. We had our corrective internal pullback, right, with the lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Now we have pulled up to this point here, this high still intact, so still have a potential lower high here. This is a 4 hour order block obviously within this area. Now some things to point out are that we still have a discount POI draw remaining. We have this imbalance here with this 4 hour order block. So that is still a draw on price. It is very much within that discount, which would be a good place to aim for. Of course that daily imbalance there has held price. So now we're looking at the possibility of, are we going to continue bullish from this daily imbalance, or are we actually going to continue our lower lows and lower highs internally to come down and mitigate this discount POI here? Inversely on DXY, it is the same. We have pulled back from this high here and we're still holding this current low. So where we've got the high, 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 low, high, high. Now we are a lot closer to taking out this low here. And we do have this nice trendline liquidity. The same thing we do have of course here on EU. So those are definitely buy side liquidity points where price could aim for to take out and continue going bullish. Because if this is our bullish leg, if we reject this area and continue, this becomes a weak high, right? So price could definitely target this weak high here. And it's the same with the inverse of DXY. So we are at that point now where, because here on DXY we had already reached this POI that's equivalent on EU, we have some sort of divergence, I guess. So we have a 4 hour imbalance with order block behind it here that we've already mitigated. So having DXY mitigate that, are we just going to continue going lower and take out these sell side liquidity points is the question. It's what we're waiting for. So a real important point of structure, if we start to make lower lows here, we may be going for this weak low. And the same with EU, obviously we may continue going up to this week high and leave this discount POI for another time. So that's what I'm waiting for. Now one thing I will mention, if we do come up and take this previous daily high here, or even this high, it doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to go for this POI, especially if we close out as a sweep and just take the buy side liquidity. So that's one thing I want to keep in mind. But yes, at this moment we have our structure that is saying lower prices on EU still, and we have our discount POI draw. However, we have our POIs here such as the daily imbalance and this DXY 4 hour imbalance that may hold and push price higher to go for this weak high. So enough said there. I hope you understood all of that. So let's go down to the 1 hour and see what that shows us. So here in the 1 hour, we can see those internal legs from the 4 hour a lot more clearly. We clearly have this bearish 1 hour leg where we mitigated that 4 hour POI and broke down. We then held support at the bottom here, made that high low and broke above this, pulled back with quite a bit of momentum up into this premium POI. So at the moment you can see the candles are still closing within this 1 hour POI here. So the order block is still valid for me, it's still holding. We have our wick high up here, so that's fine, and we have our potential lower high at this area here. We do have imbalances that have been left behind that price could target as well. It's the exact same here on DXY. You can see we've got that bullish leg. Price did come and sweep that buy side liquidity there, so I believe there's a SMC line there on a lower time frame, and that sponsored the move down to this discount. Clearly we can see over Friday evening and into the open today that we've consolidated sideways, creating loads of buy side and sell side liquidity. Now this morning you can see we have swept some sell side liquidity, which caused a bullish push, and we still have some buy side liquidity above, so we'll see what happens there. Just to note, FYI, it is a US and UK bank holiday, but I believe the rest of Europe is open, so we'll see how price behaves. So yeah, we are in a premium, we are in a POI, we have our consolidation through Asia and overnight creating a range. Now we need to see what price is going to do with this. We have our structure that's bearish, but obviously, as I mentioned in the 4 hour, we have some confluences that we're wondering if they have taken over control and if this low is going to hold or not, or if we're going to go and start taking buy side liquidity from these highs. In terms of bias, I'm going to stick with the bias of the structure, as in a bearish bias. We still have buy side liquidity here and here that could potentially move us bearish. If we are to go bullish, then that's fine. We can switch later if price energetically starts breaking highs and switching structure. But I'm going to go with the structure, high time frame pulls, and we still have confluences here. So my bias is still bearish. So let's go down to the M15 and see what opportunities we have today. So now onto the M15, you can see there's a nice range of consolidation here. Pointed out by this X, this is where we've swept those sell side liquidity internal lows. We've taken one side of Asia. You know the deal now with the cycle, we usually head to the other side of Asia. So there's still buy side liquidity resting above here, and possibly it could give that sell side sponsorship to go and take the previous daily high as more of a major buy side liquidity sponsor. So we'll see how that goes. So DXY high here and this high here, it didn't make a higher high, right, this area. So I don't believe it has swept Asia. So there's some SMC divergence here, which indicates, at least for the short term, that strength on EU. We have our lower time frame order blocks as well down here at the extreme, as we do up here in the extreme premium. Because we didn't have the 1 hour order block, I drew out the 15-minute order block here on DXY. Back to the opportunities for today. My opinion is to wait for the structure, right, where we're going to be waiting for what price does with this buy side and sell side liquidity build up here, and see how price breaks down. So with my bearish bias, of course, what I want to see is this low here break. With this current price action, this low here break. Now preferably that'll be after sweeping some buy side liquidity up here or here. So let's draw out a possible first scenario. Price could break down from where it is now. We'll have our break of structure there, possible order block and POI here, right? So then pull back, possibly corrective, up into our order block, POI imbalance here, to trade down with our bias, and obviously the way structure's been going within this pullback back down to a discount. So we would have taken some internal buy side liquidity, but preferably, that could happen up here and that would be great. But let's just draw the scenario from here. We would have the possible pullback giving us an inducement before our entry around here, break of structure around this area here. We would execute our order around this area here with stops just above the high, of course, and we could trade downwards with the trend towards a discount. That would be the first scenario here. The preferred scenario, of course, within this leg would be for price to pull up and then take in the buy side liquidity above here, just because I prefer a nice clear obvious buy side liquidity sweep from some highs beforehand. Because if we do not take these highs, the danger of this pullback is we're going to come and sweep these highs. This is my preference, buy side liquidity sweep, but just bearing in mind it could happen from here as well. We could pull back, and I'd be more than willing to take that trade if it looks good, especially with a corrective pullback, to trade downwards with my bias. Now my second scenario, which would also be nice and look very high probability in my opinion, would be if price was to pull up here, however it does it, maybe like this, and then we take that previous daily high as buy side liquidity, close out as a nice high test candle, breaking this low here as break of structure, and then we could pull back to our order block, POI imbalance on a lower time frame to trade down with the trend. We'd have our buy side liquidity sweep, break of structure around this area, possible inducement from the pullback, our lower time frame POI, which I forgot to draw in on the previous, and set our order around this area to trade downwards with the trend back towards that weak low, because this is the external high here. But as long as this action happens where we close out as a high test, or a bearish engulfing and break structure cleanly with some momentum, I'll be willing to go with my bias towards, we have our POIs within this leg as well that will draw price and then eventually maybe provide support. Now of course DXY would be doing things like this or this, depending on the scenario that we get, right? And if it does take out this previous daily low and this external low here, but we keep this external low on EU, then of course that'll be SMC divergence showing weakness on EU as well. So that will also work in our favor. So I hope that was clear. I hope you gained value from that. Any questions, let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.